Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Can you tell just by looking at me that the weight of the world has been lifted from my shoulders? That's the way it feels. I'm telling you for sure that's the way it feels. In fact, I went out and celebrated. I'll tell you about that here in a minute, too. I've been struggling with that lawn tractor. And pretty much from day one, I've said it was a fuel problem. And I think that's documented more than once. I said, and I also said that it would be a cheap fix to fix it. In fact, I was willing to bet anybody $1,000 that whenever we find the fix, that it'll cost under $50. That's a pretty big bet. And I would have bet it if somebody would have took me up on it, but nobody took me up on it. So I could have reduced it down to probably about $1. Honestly, it didn't even cost $1 to fix it. and I feel so stupid in so many ways because I didn't find this sooner. All I can say is stuff happens. Here's the video.
Ladies and germs, it is fixed. It is absolutely 100% fixed. I just went down there and cut like a full acre in the tall weeds with this thing. I didn't even cut grass. I cut heavy stuff. And it was balling up, and it's, keep in mind, it's real early in the morning. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. And it just balled the grass up and blew it out, and it was in heavy-duty stuff. And you can see there the wet grass on there. I know it's not good to cut wet grass. You don't have to tell me that. I grew up in a lawn service. The point is, it's fixed. It works. Now, watch this. Let me show you what the problem was. All along, I said it was fuel related. From day one, I said it's something to do with the fuel. I told you it would cost less than $50 to fix it. The factory clamp on here had failed. I didn't know it. I had taken this on and off a bunch of times. But today when I took it off, I said, man, that is really loose. It never felt loose before. But today, now this is the new clamp I put on there. This clamp's tight. I tightened it down super tight. That's what it was. It was sucking air right there. And yes, you might say, well, that's stupid. You should have found that. Well, I replaced all the lines. I replaced all the clamps except that clamp. And the only reason I didn't, because it felt perfectly fine. That one's been the problem all along. And so now I replaced it. All those other parts I threw at this thing are just extra parts. That's been the problem all along. Sure enough, as soon as I tighten that sucker down real tight, it runs perfect. Yeah, I know it seems really stupid. It's really stupid to me too, but it's also a big, huge relief. So I am glad it's fixed.
Yeah, it's really dumb. It's really dumb. I don't even know I can't even defend it. It's so stupid. But I took all of that apart. I took that tube that goes down in the tank. I took the tank out, cleaned the tank. I put that back on there a dozen times. Maybe not a dozen, but close to it. Maybe 7, 8 times at least. Yeah. It never felt like there was a problem there. Never did. It always felt like it was tight. This morning when I was actually going by the advice of Leon. He's an electrical engineer, and the fellow that I told you I was going to call, Rob. They said, Rob said, when I talked to him, he says, you did everything I would do. He says, I can't think of a single thing to check. You've checked everything. Because I told him all the things I checked. He goes, you did everything we would do. And Rob's really good at this. I mean, he's really good at this. So I thought, if he doesn't know, then nobody knows. He goes, the only thing I can think of is to check your switch, your key switch, and see if that could be it. Well, Leon sent me a text last night to say, you might want to check your key switch. So this morning, I got out there and I started taking things apart to get to the key switch. Now, this key switch, I'd almost rather rebuild the whole engine than take the dang key switch out of this thing. That's how bad it is to get to it. So I started disassembling parts. I'm taking the seat off. I don't remember. There's a whole bunch of things I had to take off there, and there was brackets and things to get that block your entrance into where the key is. So I'm taking those off. Well, then I thought, dang, I still can't get to it. So I thought, well, if I take the gas tank out, I can get to it a little bit better. So as I started to take the gas tank out, the hose basically fell off the gas tank. And I went, well, that ain't right. That's loose. That's way loose. That's the problem right there. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I've taken that off a dozen times. I'm seriously telling you, I've taken it off a dozen times. And that was the first time I noticed a problem. And I went, there's the problem right there. And so I put all those parts back on, the seat back on. I didn't even bother with the switch. I put the seat back on, put everything back on. And, you know, it took me 30 minutes to reassemble all the crud I took off of it. Just positive that that was going to be the problem. And sure enough, it was. I don't know how I didn't see that before. I just don't know. It was just like one of those deals that says, I don't care how hard you try, you ain't going to fix me. You know, that's just the way it felt. But I finally won. So for the price of one of those clamps, I had all those problems. And yeah, I could have went out and bought a $20,000 lawnmower, but this thing runs like a top. I mean, it runs like it's brand new, and it really does. And it's just as tight as if it was brand new. The reason for that is, number one, I've maintained it really well. Number two, I've replaced all the worn and broken parts. I've kept it up perfectly. All the spindles are new or rebuilt. Either way, everything's perfect. So it's like you couldn't go buy a new one and get one any better, really. Oh my gosh, am I glad that's done. Oh, I can't believe that I just didn't find that sooner. And don't get me wrong, I looked at that spot specifically and thought, well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong there, you know. But this morning there was something wrong there. And it's possible. I mean, like there was multiple problems here. Don't get me wrong. There was several things that were screwing around. The fuel pump wasn't doing very well. In fact, I thought, well, now that I got it working, I'm going to take the electric fuel pump back off and put the regular fuel pump back on it. And when I did that, it started failing again. So I put the electric fuel pump back on it again this morning. Anyway, the bottom line is it does work. And I went back out again afterwards. Even after I made that video clip, I went back out again, and it's running perfect. Just cuts like I don't know. It just cuts. I mean, that is one heck of a commercial grade lawnmower. It really is. It's more than it looks like. It really is. That thing goes as fast as a four-wheeler and cuts like you would not believe. And when you turn the blades on, the blades turn hyper fast on that thing. When you turn the blades on, it sounds like a helicopter. It goes boom. The blades are spinning so fast on that thing. It's unbelievable. But anyway, it's fixed. Oh my gosh. And so to celebrate, I told you I went and celebrated all those weeds that I cut with it this morning. I cut, I don't know, I don't think it was an acre, but you know, quite a bit of ground, almost an acre, out in the hayfield. So I thought, well, I'm going to go metal detect that now that it's short grass there, and I've detected through the area, but I've never really concentrated on the area. So I found a few things. I didn't find anything real good, but I found a few things. So I'll show you. I'll start with the little things and work up to the big thing. So this morning I found this, and you think, what in the heck is that? Does anybody know what that is by looking at it? I know what it is. It goes together like this, and I don't know exactly, like it pivoted. I know that. I don't know if it twisted right here or not. But anyway, I'm pretty positive this is part of one of those foldable rulers that the carpenters used to use. Pretty sure that's part of it. Not 100% sure, but I'm about 90% sure that's what this is. It's one of those foldable rulers. wooden rulers. I found this giant lug nut. This thing's, way bigger than a car lug nut. This is off of a large tractor, I'm sure, to hold a big, large tractor wheel on. Found this. This is probably at least 100 years old. You know what that is? No, that's not a toy cowboy hat. That is a piece of brass lantern. That's off of a kerosene lantern, I would say. Pretty old. And then lastly, I found yet another. I haven't counted them up, but I'm pretty sure this is at least a dozen now, this one here. And it's heavy. Another axe head. This is at least the 12th. I found 9 of them around one old house back there. The house that had the spring in the pond, the one with the spring in the pond. That house, I found 9 axe heads around that house. This is yet another one. So I found several more since I found those 9, and then found this one. So I'm pretty sure I found at least 12 axe heads now. Pretty cool. And this is the heaviest one of all. This thing is flat heavy. I don't know what they made this thing out of, but it's the heaviest one by far. It is really heavy. I bet it weighs 6 pounds at least. Hard to set it down. So anyway, that's all that I found out there today. Well, I mean, I found bullets and junk too, but you find tons of bullets and stuff. And I'm not exaggerating. I've said this before, but you can't hardly move that metal detector more than about a foot. And really, a foot is quite a distance without hitting the signal. You can't hardly move it at all without hitting the signal. It's crazy. You would not believe it. You wouldn't believe it if you were here and saw it. It's just, there's so much stuff in the ground. After a couple of 100 years, it's just, there's so much stuff in the ground. And most of it's crap. Most of it's just, wire and nails and fence staples. We call them steeples. Just stuff like that. It's just everywhere. It's just everywhere. But I'm trying to find the good stuff. So I'm ignoring 99% of those signals, and I'm only digging the really solid signals, and usually the ones that say they're not iron. Like this is brass, this is brass. This is iron, but it was so deep that it was giving a different kind of signal. Whenever you have a big piece of iron and it's deep, it'll give off a signal that sounds better than it really is. But you can generally tell that too before you even start digging. And I kind of knew that it was a big piece of iron, but I thought, well, those big pieces of iron have been pretty cool so far, so I'm going to go ahead and dig it. And sure enough, that's what came up. My plans for today are to reinstall the water wheel back on the building out there, and so I'll probably wait till the sun peaks down behind the hill and then go down there and install the water wheel back on there again. It was in the 40s again this morning. It's pretty chilly here. Let's go to the comments and see who's here. I am so thankful that thing's fixed. You just have no idea. Brian Byler was number 1. David Tharp, Dottie Hildebrand, Joe Nigan, Wayne Blitz. So, Dottie, I hope you had a good day at the doctor. Hope you're getting some relief for your shingles and whatever else. I know you got a few things going on. Wayne Blitz, hello, Jerry. Nice day in Northeast Ohio. We hope the hay will dry today. My wife might be able to come home Friday. Well, awesome. Great. Yeah, we got a second harvest here, but as I told you, JR panicked because he thought it was going to get rained on, and he baled it way too green, in my opinion. So far, no problem, but like I said, Sue took care of hers. She individually set hers on their edge and sprinkled salt on each one of them. And, she didn't stack them in a stack. You got to be careful when you stack them in a stack. So far, nobody's had any problems, but I'll be amazed if it doesn't catch on fire. Peter Laubach, fender frets sideways in the 70s were installed sideways in the factory. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I have no idea what you really mean there. Do you mean, I guess, slide them in from the side? They'd have to be a special fret to do that, because those diamond frets that we get, you couldn't do that with those. You'd just bend them up. You'd never get one of those to slide in. So Fender must have been using their own type of fret or something if they slid them in sideways. And you can't have binding on your neck if you slide them in sideways either. Dottie Hildebrand, prayers for all the Rosas. Well, thank you, Dottie. I've been praying for you, too, to get through all your issues. Let's see. Looking for a question. My David Tharp says, I just had a physical. The doctor said I don't eat anything fatty. I said, like bacon or cheeseburgers. He said, no, fatty, don't eat anything. Let's see. Moving on down. Looking for the question marks primarily. Let's see. Daddy was there after we went live. Bruce. Okay, let's see. David Tharp says, I stepped on a cornflake this morning. Does that make me a serial killer? Let's see. Wavy Gravy. I said to my wife, your mother has been with us for 20 years. Isn't it time she got a place of her own? She frowned and said, I thought she was your mother. Okay. Let's see. Ronald Todd. Phew, the mower fix is finally over. Praise the Lord. No kidding. No kidding. Like I said, you know, it's a double-edged thing here, you know, because obviously I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I would have fixed it sooner. But I knew from day one, or at least I've thought from day one, it was a fuel problem because it sounded like it was running out of fuel. But then it had me second-guessing myself toward the end, thinking, well, I've checked everything with the fuel. I don't find anything wrong with the fuel. It's got to be something electronic. So then I went to the electronic side of it. But I should have just stuck with the fuel. But I had that part off there. I couldn't tell you how many times. 6, 7, 8 times, I'm sure. And I never did notice a problem until this morning. And this morning I went, whoa, that was way too easy to get off. There's something wrong there. Sure enough, that's where it was. Bill Webb says, good afternoon. And Steve Mays, bet Sue is one happy woman. Yeah, she is happy. So she's already made plans to start cutting again. And it doesn't need cutting. She keeps it so dang short anyway. It's amazing. It's amazing. She cuts grass 2 times a week. I'm not kidding you. Ronald Todd, did you need dynamite to get those metal items out of the ground? Metal items. Oh, almost. Seriously. This one here, it was like I almost needed to go get a jackhammer to get this. This was about 10 to 12 inches deep, and I am not exaggerating. That ground was so hard. And I've got that new shovel, metal detector digging shovel, and I've put that on the products I use page because it's such a good shovel. I mean, it seriously is a really good shovel. It's a great shovel for like using in your garden or digging in. If you just needed to bury a wire or something, it's the perfect shovel for it. I'm seriously telling you, it'll dig in anything. And even that shovel was having trouble digging that ground today. But it did it, but that was some hard ground. It was like digging through solid rock. It really was. And well, most of it is rock. I mean, our ground here, you can't stick a knife in the ground anywhere without hitting a rock. There's no way you can. And that's just the fact of it. So when you get that, it's like the caliche that they talk about, like in Texas, a place where the rock it's just kind of matted together. It's almost like concrete. That's the way this ground is right now. It's just like caliche. It really is. So it was really hard getting this out. The other ones weren't quite that deep, but that thing was deep. I almost gave up on it, in fact, and said, forget it. I'll come back later. Let's see. Mitchell Robbins says that clamp was the same problem my old truck had. Yep, there you go. Bill Mumbo, you've got to make a refurbishment video on that, Jerry. Well, oh, you mean on this axe head? I thought about it. I did make one on that. Well, I don't know if I actually made a video on refurbishing it on that other double-bladed axe head that I made for when I cut down the Christmas tree. I cut down a Christmas tree on the same general area of the farm where I found that axe head, where that old house used to be. This one could make a nice axe. I mean, you can see it's super pitted. It's been in the ground a long time. I bet it's for sure been in the ground 100 years, easy. This sucker's heavy. I'm seriously telling you, I don't know that I've ever picked up an axe head that was any heavier than this axe head. It don't look any different than your average axe head, but whatever reason, it's extra heavy. I mean, it's really heavy. Anyway, let's see. David Tharp. Karl Marx is a well-known historical figure, but nobody ever mentions his sister Anya. She invented the starting pistol. Anya instead of Anya. Anya. I got it. I did get that one. Let's see. Bill Mumbo. Big Iron, great song. Yeah, that is a great song. Marty Robbins, Big Iron. No, that's not the right melody. I was thinking of a different song when I sang Big Iron, but it was a Marty Robbins tune, wasn't it? Big Iron. Let's see. Ronald Todd, the bulldozer moves stuff all over the farm, plus all the mining that went on. Yeah, that's true. This was up in the front, though. This is the first. Am I telling the truth on this? It's probably the second axe head I found up in the front area. Anyway, I don't find a lot of that kind of stuff up here in the front. I have found quite a few plowshares up here in the front. Let's see. And the bulldozers did smear a lot of stuff, I'll tell you that. Steve Mays, anybody who has done much mechanic work can relate to the way you feel. Can't always find the real problem easily. Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree, Steve. It'd be different if I hadn't looked at it a bunch of times. I mean, I looked at that a bunch of times, and with suspicion that was the problem. But it never did look like that was the problem until today. And boy, today it sure did. I went, well, for sure, that's it right there. I don't know. I don't know why it never, popped up before, but it for sure did today. I'm just thankful it finally showed its ugly head today. Anyway, David Tharp, great news. They have possibly found a cure for dyslexia. A light at the end of the toenail. Let's see. Dennis Clark. I would have thought that with all your experience you would have seen and done the fender frets. No, I didn't work on very many electric instruments. I never did work on very many electric instruments. Just a few. And I've never heard of sliding frets in from the end. Quite honestly, that seems kind of goofy to me. It just seems kind of goofy because fret wire's really thin. Did you ever try to slide a real thin anything into anything hard? It just usually bends. Why would you do that? It doesn't even make sense, really. So there you go. Common sense wise, it doesn't make any sense to me, especially if you're talking about fret wire that's got the diamonds on it. I would imagine that fret wire probably had a little tang at the bottom or something that would slide in a slot. They probably had some way of cutting some weird slot. I don't know how they would do that, though, to slide the fret wire in. Either that or just didn't have any tang at all and just smooth fret wire. Probably had little fine lines down the length of it so that the lines would grab in as it pushed in, I guess. Never messed with it. Never even really heard of it until you guys brought it up the other day. I never heard of it. is nothing again, I never hardly worked on any electric instruments, hardly ever. Wavy gravy. Last week, a parent-teacher meeting, another parent asked me what year my daughter was in. I said, well, right now she's in 2024. Yeah, ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. Well, anyway, that's everything I know, and I appreciate all you guys' support all the way through that. I know you guys were making all kinds of suggestions, and I was really seriously considering all of them. Some of them I couldn't think of how that could cause my problem. Some of them I could, and those ones that I could, I went and checked them out. But all the way through it, I kept saying, it's a fuel problem. Sure enough, it turned out it was. Bill Mumbo, the fender fret thing is definitely true. Many fender necks are unbound. Yeah, you'd have to be unbound. You couldn't possibly do it. Well, I mean, you could, I guess. If you could throw it in there and then bind it, I guess you could do that. But you sure can't re-fret it that way. Dennis Clark, you can see the frets drive out on YouTube. Yeah, well, I'll take your word for it, Dennis. I don't much give a rip, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, that's just the truth. I have no desire to even look at that, because it's like, first of all, it's water under the bridge for me. I'm done with it. Second of all, I never did really work on electric instruments anyway, or electrical instruments, as what's her name would say from Green Acres. Anyway, guys, I think I'm done. Thank you for being here. I think I might just take a celebratory nap. We will see you tomorrow with something else.